Immortality. The power to walk the night, seduce mortals with a single glance, and amass more wealth and knowledge than 1,000 lifetimes could hold. Sounds like the premium package of existence, doesn't it? The ultimate power fantasy sold in books, movies, and TV series with protagonists sporting defined jaws and flowing capes. You imagine yourself as a Dracula, a Lestat, a supreme being who treats humanity as their personal chessboard. But that's the propaganda version, the edited trailer hiding the inconvenient truth. Being born a vampire is not a blessing. It's the worst curse the universe could inflict on someone. It's basically signing a contract for eternal suffering with fine print written in dried blood. The truth is, the idea of being a vampire is only epic for those on the outside watching the spectacle. For those on the inside, living the non-life, it's a cosmic joke in extremely poor taste. You trade the joy of a sunny day for a deadly allergy that turns you into barbecue. You trade the pleasure of a good meal for a liquid, monochromatic diet that essentially makes you a glorified mosquito with existential problems. All your greatness is, in fact, a dark punishment disguised as power. And the central theme of your existence can be summarized in why it sucks to be the most powerful vampire alive. It's a punishment that never ends, an infinite loop of misery with occasional moments of gothic drama to break the monotony. Your supposed strength comes with a list of weaknesses, longer than a pharmacy receipt. You are powerful, but a sharp piece of wood can end your career. You are fast, but not fast enough to escape your own loneliness. You are immortal, but condemned to watch everything and everyone you love turn to dust repeatedly, until the very idea of affection becomes an open wound. Your existence is not an epic saga. It's a survival reality show where the only prize is continued suffering the next day. Each night is not a new opportunity to conquer the world, but rather another 24 hours to manage a personal crisis that has lasted for centuries. So before wishing for sharp fangs and a stylish cape, let's dive deep into the pit of misery that is a vampire's life. Let's deconstruct this romantic fantasy piece by piece and show the stark, raw, and pathetic reality behind the myth. This isn't a guide on how to become a creature of the night. It's a complete dossier on why you should be grateful every day for being a fragile mortal with an expiration date and the ability to eat garlic without going into anaphylactic shock. Your supposed greatness is nothing more than a dark punishment, and we're going to prove it. And while you still have the pulse and the ability to click buttons without your fingers turning to ashes from touching the screen's light, do yourself and this channel a favor. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Consider it an insurance policy against an eternity of boredom and thirst. If you think your life is bad, believe me, it could be infinitely worse. And we're here to show you all the macabre details of how that would be possible. Keep watching to understand just how lucky you are. To understand the depth of this disgrace, we need to go back to the beginning. The origin of the vampire isn't in the Gothic castles of Transylvania with charming and tormented lords. The original version is far less glamorous and far more disgusting. Forget Bram Stoker's Count Dracula for a moment. The roots of the myth come from places like ancient Mesopotamia with demons like Lamashtu who fed on babies, or from Greek folklore with the Vrikolakas, who were basically bloated and reanimated corpses that rose from their graves to disturb the family and spread disease. There was nothing seductive about it. It was the equivalent of having your great uncle, who died of plague, return as a smelly zombie to spoil the milk in your pantry. Even in Eastern Europe, where the most famous legends originate, the Romanian Strigoi was not a cloaked aristocrat. He was a cursed peasant, a tormented soul rising from the grave for not having received proper funeral rites. His appearance was grotesque: reddish skin, a body swollen from drinking so much blood, and a deathly breath that could bring down an ox. His main activity was not throwing lavish parties, but rather causing problems in the village such as droughts, livestock plagues, and of course, sucking the life force from his relatives. The curse was born as a social stigma, a spiritual flaw that transformed the individual into a putrid parasite, a public health problem. The very idea that being a vampire was cool is a recent invention, a 19th century marketing ploy. It was Gothic literature, with authors like John Polidori and later Bram Stoker, that took this repulsive folkloric creature and dressed it in a tuxedo. They transformed the bloated, pestilent monster into a noble foreigner, mysterious and seductive. It was one of the greatest frauds in the history of pop culture. They took the equivalent of a walking sewer and sold it as a French perfume. The curse was repackaged as a tragic power. The revulsion transformed into fatal attraction. but at its core, the essence never changed. This romanticization only added a layer of irony to the curse. Now, in addition to being a cursed monster, you also have to deal with the unrealistic expectations of pop culture. People expect you to be a tortured poet with a charming accent, when in reality you're a hemoglobin addict with serious social isolation issues and extreme photosensitivity. The origin of the vampire is not a story of power, but rather one of fear, disease, and despair. It's the story of a body that refuses to die, a soul that refuses to rest, and a community terrified by this anomaly. From the beginning, the vampiric condition was a state of exclusion. You weren't a predator at the top of the food chain. You were a mistake, a flaw in the system, an anomaly that needed to be corrected with a wooden stake and purifying fire. You were hunted not for being powerful, but for being a plague. All the original mythology points to a fundamental truth. Vampirism was never about gaining immortality, but rather about losing your humanity in the most degrading way possible, being reduced to a walking instinct and a source of contamination for everyone around you. Let's start with the basics, with the biology of your new and improved immortal body. The first thing you notice is thirst, and it's not normal thirst, like wanting a glass of water after a run. It's a visceral hunger, a compulsion that corrodes your mind and body, 24/7, for all eternity. Think of the worst withdrawal crisis you can imagine and multiply it by 1,000. It's a constant pain, an itch in your soul that can only be relieved with blood. This doesn't make you an elegant predator, it makes you a desperate addict, and the whole world is your rehab clinic and your dealer, all at the same time. And what happens if you don't quench that thirst? You don't die. That would be too easy. Instead, you wither away. Your body becomes weak, your mind unravels, and you regress to a bestial state, a creature driven only by the most primitive instinct. You lose any trace of who you were, becoming a wild animal that would attack its own mother for a drop of blood. All that accumulated intellect, all the wisdom of centuries, vanishes, replaced by a single humiliating need. Your immortality is not a blank canvas on which to paint your ambitions. It is a biological cage where you are both the prisoner and the guard. Then there's the sun. The source of all life on Earth is, for you, a weapon of mass destruction. It's not just a simple sunburn, it's agonizing cellular disintegration. A single ray of sunlight can turn you into a pile of ashes and dust. This means that half of existence is, literally, closed off to you. You will never again feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, walk through a park during the day, or simply look out the window on a sunny morning. Your life is permanently nocturnal, an eternal lockdown that confines you to darkness, while the rest of the world lives, laughs, and thrives under the light. And your heightened senses? Another bad joke. Hearing someone's heartbeat a block away seems useful, until you realize you also hear every idle chatter, every baby crying, every car alarm blaring all at once, at a deafening volume. The smell of blood attracts you, but the smell of garbage, sewage, and pollution assaults you with the same intensity. Your super senses don't give you a tactical advantage, they give you a perpetual headache. It's a constant sensory overload that pushes you to the edge of sanity, making silence and peace the rarest and most precious things in your long and miserable existence. Finally, physical stagnation. Your body is frozen in time forever. It seems great, until you cut yourself and the wound takes a bizarre long time to heal, or you realize you can never permanently change your hairstyle, gain muscle, or even digest a slice of pizza. You are a living statue, a walking museum piece, incapable of participating in the most basic human experiences. Eating, drinking, truly sleeping, aging with dignity, all of that has been stolen from you. In exchange, you gained a body that is a prison, an efficient machine for hunting and suffering, and nothing more. Your biology is not evolution, it's an aberration, a collection of design flaws that guarantee maximum suffering with minimum relief. If your own body is already a torture chamber, the outside world isn't much better. In fact, it's actively trying to erase you from existence. As soon as you become a vampire, you don't gain a place at the top of the food chain. You gain a giant target on your back. For every all-powerful vampire, there's a legion of dedicated hunters, religious fanatics, and stubborn heroes whose sole purpose in life is to drive a stake through your heart. You're not a king of the night, you're the most coveted prey of the season, and the season never ends. Think of the Van Helsings, the Belmonts, the Winchester brothers. Human culture is full of stories about heroes who slay monsters like you. You're the default villain in 99% of narratives. This means that at any given moment, an individual in an overcoat, with a crossbow and a hero complex, might decide that your head would look great on a stake in his living room wall. And it's not just the professionals. Any villager with a pitchfork and a bit of folk knowledge about garlic and holy water can become an existential threat. You live in a constant state of paranoia, where every shadow could hide an enemy, and every crucifix is a weapon pointed at you. But humans are just the tip of the iceberg. The supernatural world is a brutal jungle, and you're not the only predator in it. There are werewolves who hate you because of an ancient rivalry you don't even fully understand. There are mages who would love to use your immortal blood in some unholy ritual. And worst of all, there are other vampires. Vampire society isn't a gothic gentleman's club. It's a gladiatorial arena. The elders see the younger ones as cattle or as threats to their power. The younger ones are ambitious and would do anything to take your place. Your greatest threat doesn't come from sunlight, but from the creature that calls you brother while plotting to stab you in the back. If you're enjoying discovering all the ways a vampire's life is a never-ending nightmare, then give this video a like. It's the easiest way to show you appreciate this public service, which prevents you from making terrible life choices, like accepting the dark gift of a pale, charismatic stranger. Your like helps us continue debunking these myths and, frankly, motivates us not to give up and go live in a crypt. So click there before we change our minds. This constant war, both external and internal, shapes your entire existence. You can't trust anyone. Every alliance is temporary. Every friendship a vulnerability. You spend centuries building a refuge, accumulating power, only to see it all crumble because of a lucky hunter or a smarter rival. A vampire's life isn't about domination, it's about damage, control. It's an endless cycle of fighting, fleeing, and hiding. Your power makes you a target, and your immortality only ensures you'll have to keep playing this losing game for a very, very long time. You're not a predator, you're a perpetual fugitive, assuming you manage to survive the hunters, the paranoia, and your own flawed biology. You still have to deal with perhaps the worst torment of all, psychological collapse and social stigma. You are immortal, but the world is not. Everyone you know and love is on a conveyor belt toward the grave, and you stand there watching. Imagine falling in love, building a life with someone, only to watch them grow old, get sick, and die in your arms, while you remain exactly the same. Now imagine this happening again, and again, and again for centuries. It's not romantic. It's a form of psychological torture that destroys any capacity to form true bonds. Every friend, every lover, every family member is a ticking time bomb of grief. Over time, affection becomes synonymous with pain. You begin to avoid connection so you don't have to go through the suffering of loss again. This leads you to a deep and corrosive isolation. A vampire's loneliness isn't the loneliness of a Friday night without plans. It's a cosmic loneliness, an abyss that deepens with each passing decade. You become an observer of life, not a participant. Humanity becomes a parade of anonymous and ephemeral faces, and you are the only permanent spectator in an empty theater. Beyond the pain of loss, there is the burden of memory. Your immortal mind records everything with perfect clarity. Every mistake, every cruelty, every life you took to survive. These ghosts don't fade with time, they accumulate. Centuries of regrets and atrocities echo in your mind, turning eternity into a prison of guilt. Madness is not a risk, it's an inevitability. Many vampires, after a few centuries, simply tire of fighting their own memories and succumb to apathy or complete insanity, becoming irrational monsters or catatonic recluses. And socially, you're the monster, always. No matter how charming or civilized you try to be, deep down, you're an aberration, a predator that feeds on humans. Society sees you as the personification of evil, a plague to be eradicated. Being hated by everyone is basically a Monday for a human being, but for you it's a literal and permanent condition. You can't participate in society, not really. You live in the shadows, on the fringes, always hiding your true nature. Any revelation means panic, persecution, and most likely, a horrible death. This combination of emotional isolation, psychological torture, and social exclusion is the true core of the curse. The theme, why it sucks to be the most powerful vampire, alive, crystallizes here. Your power isolates you, your immortality condemns you to see pain repeated, and your nature makes you an eternal outcast. You may have the strength of 10 men, but you lack the capacity to enjoy a single genuine human relationship without it ending in tragedy. You are the loneliest creature in the world, surrounded by 8 billion people who are at the same time Your food, your temptation, and your greatest fear. Now let's get to the day-to-day logistics, the part that no Gothic film bothers to show. How does an 800-year-old vampire pay his bills? You can't just walk into a bank and open an account with a 13th century birth certificate. Identity documents, credit history, all the modern bureaucracy is an insurmountable nightmare. For you, you constantly need to forge documents, create new identities, and erase your tracks every few decades so that no one notices that you haven't aged a day since you took your first driver's license photo. Maintaining a low profile is a full-time, unpaid, and extremely stressful job. And finding a job? Good luck. Most jobs happen during the day, a time when you're busy trying not to turn into bacon. Nighttime options are limited. You could be a security guard, a DJ, or maybe a software developer working from home. But eventually your boss will want to hold a team meeting at 10 a.m. on a sunny Wednesday. Sorry, boss. I have a rare medical condition that causes me to spontaneously combust in sunlight. Doesn't sound very professional, does it? Your immortality gives you all the time in the world to learn new skills, but almost no opportunity to apply them practically. Food is another logistical nightmare. You can't just go to the supermarket and buy a box of O-positive blood. You have to hunt, but in a world with security cameras on every corner, facial recognition, and forensic science, leaving a trail of bodies with 2 holes in the neck is the quickest way to attract the attention of every law enforcement agency on the planet. So you have to be discreet. This means feeding on animals, which is the equivalent of living on instant noodles, or frequenting blood banks, which turns you into a pathetic thief. Hunting is not a noble act of predation, it's a humiliating exercise in risk management. And what about technology and fashion? The world changes in the blink of an eye, but you're stuck in your customs and mindset. Imagine a medieval knight trying to understand the concept of NFTs or Instagram's privacy policy. It's a constant culture shock. You're always out of date, always one step behind. Every decade you need to learn a new set of slang, adapt to new technologies, and try to fit into a society that evolves faster than you can keep up. You're not a timeless and wise being. You're a living fossil, a perpetually confused cosmic boomer. Finally, where do you live? You need a safe place to sleep during the day, away from sunlight and prying neighbors. A windowless basement, an abandoned crypt, an apartment with industrial-grade blackout curtains. Your home isn't a sanctuary, it's a bunker, and you have to constantly move. People notice when the mysterious neighbor who only comes out at night has lived in the same place for 50 years, without aging. Your life isn't one of luxury and power, but rather one of forced nomadism, jumping from hideout to hideout like a fugitive criminal. Absolutely nothing in the practical life of a vampire works well. After centuries of biological suffering, relentless persecution, psychological collapse, and logistical nightmares, what remains? Inevitable fate. And unlike their existence, it is not eternal. A vampire's immortality is at best conditional. You won't die of old age, but there are countless other, far more violent and humiliating ways to meet your end. The truth is, almost no vampire story ends with them happily retiring to a dark beach somewhere. Most end with fire, pain, and oblivion. The most common ending, of course, is death at the hands of a hero. After everything you've been through, after all those centuries of survival, your grand saga ends with a determined human shoving a piece of furniture into your chest. There's no dignity in that. You, a being of immense power, defeated by an object that could be found in the gardening section of a department store. Or worse, dragged into the sunlight and burned in a grotesque display, screaming as your millennia-old flesh turns to ashes. It's an anticlimactic and brutal ending to an already miserable life. Another common fate is madness. Eternity is long, and the mind was not made to endure it. Boredom, loneliness, and guilt accumulate until their sanity shatters like fragile glass. Many vampires end up as irrational beasts, hidden in the depths of ancient ruins. Having completely lost who they were, they are no longer thinking beings, merely echoes of a distant past, driven by primal instincts. In this state, they are easily hunted and destroyed, or simply fade into darkness, forgotten by the world. Their immortality did not lead them to enlightenment, but rather to dementia. There is also betrayal. The vampire world, as we have already established, is a nest of vipers. Your most likely death will come from someone you trusted, your creator, your offspring, your closest ally. The pursuit of power is relentless, and in the game of immortality, there are no rules. You will spend centuries building your power and influence, only to be brought down by a conspiracy born of envy or ambition. Your downfall will not be an epic act of heroism, but a sordid footnote in an internal power struggle that no one from the outside will ever know about. In the end, their greatness is their greatest weakness. The embodiment of why being the most powerful vampire is a dark punishment. The more powerful you become, the more enemies you attract. The deeper your isolation, and the more spectacular your downfall. A vampire's fate almost always converges on a single point: annihilation. Whether by the sun, by a stake, by madness, or by betrayal, the end comes. And the greatest irony of all is that, after an eternity of fearing death, when the end finally arrives, it is almost a relief. A welcome liberation from a curse that should never have been desired by anyone. So let's recap the list of benefits of being a vampire.